our celebration of 9 years of FSS. So please stay and celebrate with us. We're gonna start by reading, since it's our anniversary, I chose a text called Fraternity. And it's the text number 15 from the Living Spring, Fonte Viva. Fraternity. By this, all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another. Jesus, in the book of John, chapter 13, verse 35. Ever since Constantine's victory, which opened the doors of political dominance to the Christian world, we have been through many experiences to show that we are disciples of Jesus. We have held renowned councils, formulating daring conclusions regarding the nature of God, the soul, the universe, and life. We have encouraged dreadful wars that imposed misery and terror on those who could not believe in the tenets of our faith. We have fought over the tomb of the Divine Master by spreading ravenous fire and brandishing the murderous sword. We have created commandments and religious posts by distributing poison and wielding the dagger. We have lit fires for burning at the stake, constructed gallows, invented tortures, and built prisons for those who disagreed with our point of views. We have encouraged insurrections that caused animosity between brothers and sisters in the name of the Lord, who on the cross bore witness of his devotion to all humankind. We have built beautiful, sumptuous palaces and basilicas in his memory, forgetting that he did not have a stone on which to rest his head. And today, we still nourish division and discord, digging trenches of incomprehension and animosity against one another, because we interpret the faith differently. Nevertheless, the word of Christ is irrefutable. We cannot claim to be wards of the good news simply by outward attitudes. Yes, we do need education, which improves the mind, justice, which preserves order, material progress, which enriches work, and counsels, which support the study of the faith. However, without the light of love, all human activity may be lost in darkness. We will be accepted as learners of the gospel by cultivating the kingdom of God, which begins in our inner life. Therefore, let us extend pure and simple fraternity all around us by mutually helping one another. The fraternity that labors and assists, understands and forgives amid the humility and service that ensure the victory of the good. Wherever we are, let us practice fraternity, recalling the word of the Lord, who clearly and surely asserted, "By this all men will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." Let's close our eyes. Let's take a deep breath in and out. In through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time. Dear Master Jesus, today we are here gathered in your name. We are here together to study your words, your teachings. And we are thankful. We thank you for all the sacrifices you made in order for us to be able to learn. We are grateful for all the examples you left us. And we are grateful for Spiritism, which enlightens our path, which helps us understand Master, we ask you for protection, for enlightenment today, for this simple meeting, for our celebration of 9 years of our home of love. We ask our mentors of FSS to enlighten us today, to inspire our minds, our hearts, to help us understand the content of the talk and how it can touch our lives, how we can improve ourselves using your lessons, Master. So be it. Okay, so this is part 2. Not everybody was here for part 1, so we're gonna sort of fly through part 1 so that nobody is lost, and then we concentrate on part 2. Is that okay? Nobody would say no, but thank you for saying yes. You are very nice people, thank you. Okay, so reincarnation, the main purpose, part 2, and there's no revenge here. Because part 2 is usually the revenge, right? So Rambo 2, so there's no revenge here. So it's based on Spirit's book, Gospel According to Spiritism, Consciência Espírita that we have in our library, unfortunately not in English yet, but I can help. Dias Felizes, unfortunately not in English yet, which are messages from Spirit Honório, psychographed by Afro Stefanini II. And the book Pontos e Contos, and there's also a little bit from a book from Divaldo. No, I can't remember. Something about obsession. I can't remember the name, of course. Okay, so here we go. So we propose this reflection in part 1. So what is the purpose of reincarnation? We can talk a little bit about this one if anybody wasn't here. If anybody wants to add something, what do you think is the purpose of reincarnation?
Evolution.
What else?
Progress.
Yes. What else?
Opportunity to fix things that happened in the past. In a certain way.
Yeah. All answers are correct. What am I doing here? Here on Earth, here in Canada, in Calgary, at the Spiritist Center. Here could be several different places. The reflection is, do we know our role? Do we know our purpose? Do we feel like we know inside of ourselves? You look scared. Are you okay?
Good, I'm good, yeah.
Did I choose everything that happens, or will happen to me? What do you think? Do you think everything that's going on is stuff that we chose?
Maybe we acquiesce to it, even if we didn't know. Like, generally agree to what was going to happen. And just kind of went with it.
Yeah, sure. Sign the contract.
There you go.
I prepared a contract for you. It's here. You just need to read and sign.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think this is a very tough question because considering everybody has their free will, then some things will affect us because of the other person's reaction or
Choices, yeah.
choices. So some things yes, some things not.
Okay. So let's say that sometimes we're the perpetrator, sometimes we're the victim.
Yeah.
Okay. That's one way of putting it. We'll talk about that. And why don't I remember? Why I'm here, why all this is going on, if I agreed or not, if I chose or not. Is it fair that I don't remember?
Oh, yeah.
It's good.
I think that everything that happens to us is kind of like a consequence from our choices and our actions. So some of those choices we make them before reincarnating, and other ones we choose them like when we're here. So I think yes, it's all like from our choices, but one of them, like some of them are before reincarnating, and some are not.
And do you think it's fair that you don't remember? Don't you think you could do better if you remembered?
I think it's better not.
It's kind of hard to fix something I don't know I broke. How am I going to fix something that I don't know I broke?
Really, really try, you know.
Yeah, I'm just playing the devil's advocate. Okay, so we'll see all about that. I actually have prepared a talk specifically about why we don't remember. Okay, so we're gonna fly through this part because it's questions from the Spirit's book. So what is incarnation first? Like, again, from a teacher's perspective, we need to put the blocks in order to build something. So incarnation. So what is the purpose of incarnation? What's the difference between incarnation and reincarnation? It's as obvious as it sounds.
First time.
Exactly. So incarnation, first time. Reincarnation, again. Okay, but again, we need to remember that Kardec, as a scientist, he had a methodology. So even though his questions might look repetitive, they were not. They were not repetitive. He was trying to get like smaller, like more aspects of what he was asking about. So none of his questions are truly repetitive. He's asking different things if we pay attention. So what is the purpose of incarnation of spirits? As we spoke here, God's law imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. For some, it's an expiation. Does everybody know what is expiation? It's when you're atoning for something that you did. You already did it wrong, now you have a chance to do it right. For others, a mission. So like a trial, a challenge. You didn't do anything wrong, but you're challenging yourself to do something well. However, in order to reach this perfection, they must undergo all the vicissitudes or problems of corporeal existence. When we are in the spirit world, all of our senses are a lot keener, and we have more senses than the 5 or 6 that we have here on Earth. So it's a lot easier to understand and to act in a certain way. However, when we're incarnated and we don't have the memory from the past, we don't know what we broke and needs to be fixed, we don't know what we want to challenge ourselves on for our trials. That's the real test, right? Because if you take the test in the spiritual world, it's like an open book test. All the answers are right there. But when we're incarnated, that's the real test. Like, did we really learn? And are we willing to practice? Because we're going to talk about this. We can learn. But there's more to just knowing. 167. So this was 132. So it takes him another 35 questions to get to what is the purpose of reincarnation. So in between, he's asking a whole lot more things about it. And then he gets to what's the purpose of reincarnation? Okay, we incarnate, we come to learn, to progress. But why do we have to do it again and again and again? Been there, done that. Bought the t-shirt. Expiation, so again, because we make mistakes. So we need to come back again to fix that mistake that we made before. And humankind's progressive improvement. Without reincarnation, where would justice be? Right? Everybody gets only one chance. Some are rich, some are poor, some are healthy, some have some kind of handicap. Only one chance. How's that fair? All spirits are, and this is a comment by Allan Kardec on question 171, again about reincarnation that comes after, and Allan Kardec makes this comment. All spirits are headed towards perfection, and God furnishes them with the means of realizing it through the trials of corporeal life. Out of divine justice, God allows them to accomplish in new existences whatever they could not do or complete in a previous trial. Sometimes we realize what we had to do maybe a little in the later part of our lives. So we didn't get to complete what we set out to do, what we agreed to do, but we have already started. So we come back again to complete what we started. Make sense? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so this is one of the most important questions in the Spirit's book, question 115. It helps us understand a lot of things. So, are some spirits created good and others bad?
No.
Everybody's doing their homework. So, God has created all spirits simple and unaware, that is, without knowledge, blank canvas. God has given each of them a mission. It is aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them toward perfection through knowledge of the truth in order to draw them near to God. So let's stop there a little bit. So enlightening them and progressively leading them. We are in a hurry. God isn't. We're the ones who are in a hurry. Because this is supposed to be progressive, gradual, slowly. Right? Reaching perfection is not supposed to hurt. Sometimes we bring the hurt upon ourselves, but it's not supposed to. That's through our own choices. In that perfection, they will find eternal happiness without any troubles. Spirits acquire knowledge by experiencing the trials that God has imposed on them. That is reincarnation, incarnation, and several reincarnations, right? So the trials that God imposes on us. Some submit to these trials and thus arrive more quickly at their destiny, which is perfection or relative perfection, whereas others cannot endure them without murmuring. Thus, through their own fault, these latter ones remain far from the perfection and happiness promised to them. So we have 4 words that are bolded. We have mission, truth, submit, and murmuring. So we'll see a little bit more about these words. So first of all, it says it's aimed at enlightening them and progressively leading them toward perfection through the knowledge of the truth. What is the truth? You will know the truth will set you free.
Divine laws.
Exactly. So through the knowledge of the divine laws, which is our mission, we are going to get closer and closer and closer to God and closer to relative perfection, because only God is absolutely perfect. Make sense? Yep. What about murmuring? What is murmuring?
Complaining.
Yeah. So some submit to these trials and thus arrive more quickly at their destiny, whereas others cannot endure them without murmuring, without complaining. Is there anybody here who does not complain? Never, right? They never complain. Mine is not here today, I can't poke her. I'll make her watch it later. Okay. So, mission. The mission of the immortal spirit is to fulfill the existential purpose of drawing themselves near to God through the knowledge of the truth, divine laws, and thus reach perfection and eternal happiness. right? Make sense? Does anybody disagree? Click, click. Okay, so existential program. We talked about this last time. We have our existential program and our existential purpose. Right? What's the difference?
Long term, short term.
Maybe the spiritual plan when you reincarnate.
Which one, the program or
The program.
the program? And the
What are you
purpose.
supposed to do during your reincarnation?
And the purpose.
The purpose is, for example, learn how to be more patient or to practice virtues throughout that program.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. So the program is the contract, is the highlights. The family, let's say genetic disposition, your life partner, profession, all of that is part of the program. But the purpose is, the program is supposed to help you with the purpose. But if something goes wrong in the program, your purpose is still the same. So that virtue that you came to develop is going to remain the same. The spiritual world is master in improvisation. They can improvise like nobody. So if something goes wrong in the program because of our own choice or someone else's choice, don't worry, the purpose is still the same. Like, we don't cancel the reincarnation because one thing in the program didn't go according to the plan. We are going to improvise and keep going, and the purpose is going to be the same. That virtue that I need to develop, I still need to develop. And the spiritual world is going to help me with new situations that will help me develop that virtue. In terms of the program, there are 3 levels of participation. Remember in the reflection, like, do we choose everything that happened, that will happen? So for the existential program, there are 3 levels of participation. Level 1, 0 participation. It's those mandatory reincarnations for spirits who are so stubborn that they agree to nothing. Anything you suggest, they're going to say no. It's no to everything. Or they are so spiritually sick, spiritually ill, that they have no condition of making any choices.
These are the ones who lose their free will, right?
Yes. And then, because God will never abandon anybody, He will take their free will away so they stop hurting themselves and make them reincarnate. Usually, well, not usually, always with parents that know the situation, accept the challenge, and hopefully that spirit will slowly open up again. And then they get their free will again. Well, actually, when we are incarnated, we always have our free will, right? So God takes away the free will of choosing to reincarnate. But once they're incarnated, they're not being controlled by anybody, only themselves. Level 2, partial participation. You choose a few things and you accept suggestions from all the mentors. It's very important to remember that planning a reincarnation is not a 1 or a 2 or a 3 people job. There is a whole group. There is like a big group of spirits who are helping us prepare for our reincarnation. In terms of all of our choices, in terms of profession, depending on what profession we choose, we will be very well prepared for that reincarnation. There's no, oh, you're ready, go. So we are really well prepared by a lot of spirits, okay? So second level is we are able to make some decisions, but we might not be mature enough, spiritually speaking, to make all the decisions. So some decisions are made by our mentors who know what is best for us. And the third level of participation is when we choose most of the highlights, but not necessarily everything. For a spirit to be able to choose absolutely everything, they would be a spirit who is on a mission, like, for example, a Emmanuel, Joana de Angelis. But I'm sure they would still accept suggestions from spirits higher than them because they know better, right? They're not as stubborn as we usually are. And the existential purpose is the core of the existential program. So the existential program, my family, my body, my profession, my partner, or if I choose not to have a partner, all of that is supposed to support my existential purpose. Make sense? Okay. Submission. When the immortal spirit, aligned with their existential purpose, makes the effort to know the truth and develop the virtues in themselves, they submit to the law of God. That is, they submit to the duty of the conscience to fulfill the mission they bring within themselves to reach relative perfection, drawing themselves near to God. So we have our mission, we have our purpose. We have that one or two virtues that we agreed to come and develop. We are going to do that through submitting to the laws of God, but not submitting in a negative way. There's the submit of giving up, and this is not what we're talking about. That's a passive submission. You're like, I quit, I'm done. This submission we're talking about is when it's active. It's when you submit, you accept, because you know that that's good for you. Even if your pride wants to say no, even if your anger wants to say no, you are still able to calm yourself down and submit because you know that that's the best option for you. Not because anybody told you, not for any reason. Inside you, in your conscience, you know that that's the best way for you. All right? All good? Make sense? Yeah? All right. Okay, murmuring, complaining is the circumstantial. What is circumstantial?
Temporary.
Perfect. It's the circumstantial or temporary process of unsubmissive, and the word is in italics because it doesn't exist, but English is a very flexible language. So when you don't submit. So it's the temporary process of unsubmissive rebellion against the existential purpose, which can last more or less time and have different degrees of manifestation. From existential emptiness, going through existential abandonment, and reaching the stage of existential isolation. So that existential emptiness starts with feeling like you don't belong, like, what am I doing here? What's the purpose of all this? Like, what am I good for? What am I doing here? So existential abandonment is when you start feeling nobody cares. If I die tomorrow, what difference will it make? With 7 billion people on this planet, nobody's gonna miss me. And here we are going into like bad, deep depression. And it gets to the point of existential isolation. I isolate myself from everything and everybody. I don't feel like I belong in the universe. I feel like there's no space for me, that nobody likes me, that nobody cares about me, not even God. And unfortunately, many times that leads to suicide attempts. So this is serious. The spirit then activates the law of cause and effect And through their insubordination, they bring upon themselves long periods of pain and suffering until they humble their pride and appease their rebelliousness, submitting to the mission after they get tired of suffering. So, you know, after you've done that so many times, you're like, okay, I can't take this anymore. I'll do what's good for me because I'm tired of suffering. So some people will have more of this, some people will have less, depending on the choices you make. Right? Okay. So the 3 dimensions of the truth, like we were saying, so truth, divine laws. So the first thing is to know. Like, how can you apply something you don't know? So we first need to know and understand what the divine laws are. But that's just the first step. The second step is feel. Because reading a book is easy. I know so many Spiritists who love to preach all about the divine laws. But the moment you leave the Spiritist center, you're not a Spiritist anymore. Or before you come in, right? So it's not just the knowledge, it's the feeling. It's when that really touches you. It's the aha moment. It's like, oh, I get it. Empathy. Oh, now that I've been through what Carol was through, now I understand. So feeling the things that we already know. I know the meaning of empathy. That doesn't mean I feel it. And then from feeling, of course, the last stage is experience, is to apply that in our daily lives. So the distance between know and feel could be much bigger than between feel and experience. Because once you start to feel it, it's easier for you to apply it. Because now, like, you feel it in yourself. And there's sort of an impulse for you to apply what you're feeling. Right? So thoughts turn into feelings that turn into actions. If we're lazy, we stop in the know. But after we feel, it's kind of hard to be lazy. Okay, so the path to evolution, reincarnation, goes through trial, which is when we challenge ourselves, right? I'm not fixing anything, I'm just challenging myself. And expiation, it's when I'm trying to do right something that I got wrong before. Make sense? Yeah? Does anybody have any questions about that? No? Okay. Then the flowers don't let us see, but education goes through love. So trial is, we are offering ourselves to try something, to develop something. And it's not to fix anything. I just want to do better. I already have a 7, I want a 10. That's all. And it's usually through love. It's usually through learning by education with your parents, whatever religion you follow, or even through the mistakes of others. You see it happening to someone else, you're like, I don't want that for me. And that's also a way to learn through education. Expiation is re-education. So we already got it wrong, we need to be re-educated. Not always, but it's usually visited by pain. And sometimes by suffering, if we keep being stubborn, if we keep insisting on not learning, then from pain, it goes back. Which is actually a text from the book Dias Felizes by Espírito Honório. And it's a message where Espírito Honório talks about exactly the purpose, the main purpose of reincarnation. There isn't only one. So he talks about the main purpose of reincarnation. So, and it starts with something that Jesus says, and Matthew wrote it on his book in the Gospels, chapter 16, verse 26. What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul?
What's forfeit again?
Oh, I don't know the translation. It's like give up.
To give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To give something up.
Yes. For example, a game, if you don't show up, you forfeit the game. Like sort of can't give up, cancel.
Okay.
So what does Mentor Honório say about this? And I think that the flowers are going to be in the way, but I'll read the part they're hiding. There is an increasing number of souls on earth who wander without purpose in these grave days of transition. They cohabitate with each other in webs of intense relationships without overcoming the solitude and bewilderment that intensify the feeling of depression and agony within them. Bewilderment is aturdimento. So, a lot of us, when we ask ourselves that question, what am I doing here? Do I know what I'm doing here? What is my purpose? Like, why was I born in this family? Why did I marry this person? Why did I immigrate to Canada? Like, why? Sometimes we are looking for a grand answer. We're looking for, oh, I have a mission on this earth. And if I don't accomplish my mission, this is a big failure. Has anybody ever thought like that? Right? We're always looking for what is, whose hero am I going to be? In whose story am I going to be the main character? We're always so worried about what's outside. We're so worried about, how I interact with other people. How good can I be? Like, we all want to be, well, not we all. I know one person who doesn't. But many of us wants to be top of the class. Yeah, that one person is my son. Or maybe it's just me because I'm a geek, I don't know. So, you want to be in the spotlight at some point. You want to do something that matters. And sometimes it's not just pride. Sometimes we just want to matter. We want to do something that, might change someone else's life for the better or something like this. Right? Am I going to find the cure for cancer? Well, I'm not a doctor, I'm a teacher, so probably not. Somebody, maybe. But again, we are so worried about everything that is outside. So webs of intense relationships without overcoming the solitude and bewilderment that intensify the feeling of depression and agony within. So when it takes us too long, or when we don't even realize that we're not here, we may be destined to something big, we may be destined to become famous, but that's not our purpose. Our purpose is with ourselves. It's not with the world. Improving ourselves automatically improves the world, right? It's automatic. If every person becomes better, the entire world will become better. So we don't have to be, somebody known worldwide to improve anything. Being a good mother improves your children's life. Being a good boss improves your employees' lives. So we're always looking for something grand outside when the main purpose is actually inside. And it's not as complicated as we would like it to be. It's not something that we can't comprehend, that we can't wrap our minds around. It's so simple. It's to improve ourselves. So let's continue. These individuals individuals swarm in intense expectations of serenity and peace, right? You're meditating like, come peace, come peace, come. I have 2 minutes, come peace, peace. But keep themselves in a state of moral inertia, demanding privileges from the heavens when they claim to be spiritualized, or request miraculous blessings when they claim to be religious, or cursing against the belief systems when immersed in the pessimistic and destructive materialism. So, I'm here, right? So, God put me here. Somebody needs to do something for my peace, right? So, I'm an honest person. I have a job. I don't trick anybody. I go to the Spiritist Center. I read good books. I read the Bible. So, God needs to bless me. It's that feeling of entitlement that we have. That just by being neutral, I don't harm anybody. Not harming anybody is not the same as helping somebody. That's moral inertia. Being neutral is moral inertia. We're not moving anywhere, front, back, sideways. We're not going anywhere. And we're still sitting. Because we are not bad, we expect that all the blessings will shower us from heaven without us making any effort. Make sense? Millions of beings get up every day to fulfill social commitments that the laws of survival imposes on them. So, you know, the whole go to work, work out, spirit center, sports, social activities. They are all part of the law of survival. We are supposed to live in society. There's nothing wrong with any of those. But now here comes the part. And despite all the comfort and technology, the souls remain unhappy because they cannot feel the purpose for all of this in their hearts. Does that sound familiar? If we are past this stage, we know somebody who is in this stage, right? Even if it's not how we feel, we know people who feel like this. The result of the internal egocentric movement is the immense lack of existential purpose, leading the spiritual being to extremes, which is that this purpose doesn't exist either, so made up word. So this purpose, no purpose of life, in which every movement and search of the immortal spirit focuses on ignoring the loving laws of God in a vain attempt to challenge them. Does this make sense to everybody? So we go, when that lack of existential purpose, like the extremes we go to. Sometimes it could be extreme sports, like risking your life, that need for adrenaline. Some people have the need for adrenaline, or they say they don't feel alive. So what they're doing is trying to find their purpose. They're probably going about it the wrong way, risking their lives like too often. But that's my personal opinion. It's got nothing to do with Spiritism. That's my bias. So, you know, extremes, people who hurt themselves when they are in deep depression. So all the things we do to try and find our purpose, defying other people, like people who pick fights with everybody. That person that, you know, they want to have the last word, and it's an attempt to try and find our role, our purpose. This voluntary movement, why voluntary movement? Like this voluntary movement of the spirit choosing to remain in the illusion of their inner world. Why is it voluntary?
Because we create it. It's not thrust upon us.
Mm-hmm, exactly. We create it, and inertia, we choose to be in that inertia, right? If I'm sitting just waiting either for blessings to shower me or for somebody to push me, that's voluntary inertia. Like, I chose to be like that. So this voluntary movement of the spirit, choosing to remain in the illusion of their inner world, keeping themselves unhappy for more or less time, depending on when we want to wake up, will only be changed when the suffering that the existential emptiness causes in our souls increases to its limit. Or, sorry, it's or not off. Or before, if the spirit decides to free themselves from the binding processes of pride. So this process of either inertia, moral inertia, suffering, or going to extremes, like the two ends will only stop when either we reach the limit, like we say in Portuguese, we say once you reach the bottom of the well, the only way is up. We say that in Portuguese, right? So that's kind of the idea. Once you reach a point that's the latest stage, and then you are like, I don't want to suffer anymore. What can I do to change this? What can I do to improve, to have some peace? Why can't I be happy like Johnny? I want to be happy like Johnny.
I'm not that happy.
Okay? And again, it says more or less time, right? Because it can happen, but you don't need to get to the bottom. You don't need to get to the extreme. You don't need to get to a near-death experience if you're base jumping before you decide to maybe do something else with your free time. So, again, always our choice. Faster or slower will depend on how much longer we want to be stubborn and in pain and suffer. Right? In the history of humanity, the great spirits of love made themselves small to the conquests of the world and still changed the parameters of consciences because they kept themselves true to it, true to their conscience, in their spiritual conviction that love is always the mark of the real victory over all kinds of injustice. So all the great spirits, they made themselves small. We know a lot of their names, but the most important is the lesson they lived, the life they lived. You were, a few months ago, Attila, you were mentioning about Buddha, who was like a prince and abandoned everything. So what stays, I didn't know until you told me, because to me, what is important, what stays with me are the lessons he left.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So he was already socially big. He made himself smaller. Right?
And not just that, he didn't write anything down. So that part about like parameters of consciousness, it was kept only because everybody around him was like, these are gems. I gotta put all this to
Same
paper.
thing. Jesus didn't write one word down.
Yeah, that's a very good point. 100%. Yeah, maybe similarities.
But the examples he left speak more than any words, right? Actions speak louder than words.
And it's funny because some people who do not believe Jesus, it's one of their first arguments. They say, well, if he existed, why he didn't leave everything written? Why he didn't write anything? I said, well, because he was too humble. He was like, he had another strategy.
It was not his role. That was the
Yeah.
role he left for his disciples.
Yeah.
His role was to exemplify
Yeah.
his words.
And
Right?
then Matthew decided to write.
Yes, and then it's insane.
And this also goes back to what you said earlier, you were talking about the world and people's sense of a need to just kind of have this massive impact, this overwhelming impact on the world and change it, almost like a pressure to do so.
Mhm.
But realistically, if the only thing that you accomplish in an entire life is changing yourself, you've already changed the world. Because, as my wise friend Victor recently told me, you're here, you're part of it. It only works with you. This world only exists because you're in it. So
Yeah.
you want to change it, just change yourself, and
Absolutely.
it's already changed more profoundly.
Which is already hard enough, right?
100%,
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Exactly. I always use the analogy of pixels. Like we are each one pixel in a picture. In order for the whole picture to change, each pixel needs to change. We can't change the whole picture without changing each pixel. And we are all the little pixels. If we don't change, the picture is not going to change.
Mhm.
So it starts with us, literally. It sounds cliche, but it literally starts with us. And that is our main purpose, right? So, and the changes like these great spirits caused, they were not due to something they achieved externally. They were because of their inner transformation. They showed the world their inner transformation, the examples they left of how they changed inside. So Buddha is one, Paul is another, right? So it's not the things he did that led him to be who he was at the end. It's the inner changes. It's how he changed inside that culminated in all his actions, right? Our actions, we may put a mask on, but it only lasts so long. It can't last our whole lives. Ultimately, in the end, we will show who we truly are. And we are what's inside us. So once we change inside, our actions are going to show. What was extraordinary in these great spirits' story was not the life they had, but what they accomplished in their own conscientious, moral, and intimate lives, transforming, therefore, the chosen pathways that illuminated their life's story. So they transformed themselves. They transformed their conscience, their moral values, and their intimate lives. And that illuminated their pathway, and they lit up the light that helps us too. Right? So what is the main purpose? Long story short, after 2 meetings, self-transformation, improving ourselves. That's the main purpose, right? Coming here to do the same thing again and again would not make sense. So the main purpose is to transform our conscience, our lives, our hearts. Just like a butterfly that starts as an egg, caterpillar, the pupa, they get out and become a pretty butterfly. All this theory is beautiful, right? And it sounds super simple when somebody says it out loud. But me being myself, I'm also a big fan of, great, very nice, but how do I do that? I like the how-to. Give me a sign, give me a path to follow. There is no recipe. However, there are resources. And what are the resources?
When was?
But how do we practice them? How do we get there? How do we try to exercise our virtues? There are tools that will help us. So, what are some resources? And these resources were given to us by Eurípides Barzanufo. That's a mouthful for you, for us too. In the book Tormentos da Obsessão, that's the name of the book, Torments of Obsession. At the end, I remembered. So they're telling, it's a part of the book where they're telling a story about a medium who he participated intensely in his reincarnation program. So he was supposed to be a medium, and he asked for many things. He asked not to have a life partner so he could concentrate. He asked that he would always humble himself to make Jesus bigger. So there was a list. Actually, there is, when they bring him in during his sleep, there is a lady who has like a piece of paper that she opens and reads, like a parchment that she opens and reads with all the things he agreed to do. And like he was, of course, deviating from the route. Like he was already being obsessed, so they could see obsession energy in his brain, in his genetic or private parts, so they could see he was going completely off the path. So one night during his sleep, they brought him in, and Eurípides Barzanufo, who is a mentor in the spiritual world, was reminding him of all the things he promised he was going to do, of all his commitments. And these resources are resources that he suggested to this medium. Prayer doesn't get any more basic than prayer. It helps us synchronize with the energy of God. It helps us get in sync, right? And Jesus talked about prayer so many times. He taught us how to pray. It doesn't have to be loud. God's not deaf. It can be in private with ourselves. It can be just a conversation with God. There's no formula for praying. Praying can be a simple conversation with God. So there are many suggestions of prayers in many books, including Spiritist books and everything. But there's no formula. It's whatever is in your heart. Whatever comes out of your heart is a prayer. Edifying readings. What is edifying? It's something instructive or informative, but that also improves you as a person. So edifying reading. Reading something that will help you improve as a person. Morally, spiritually. So some people say, oh, but every time I start reading Emmanuel, every time I start reading Joana de Angelis, it's complicated and I fall asleep, so I give up. Keep reading. That's exactly what the obsessor who is trying to get you to sleep wants, because those people who are in the spiritual world, who might have been your partners in crime in the past, they don't want you to move forward and leave them behind. So, persist. Don't read in bed. Read sitting down. Change your position. Change the place. Change the time you're reading. Read at the time where your brain is most active. If you're a morning person, afternoon, evening person, you know yourself. So, just make those small changes and you will be able to do that reading. Edifying conversations. How many of our conversations during the day are complaints or gossip or nothing useful at all? So edifying conversations also help us go back, right? So calm down, let's stop, complaining. And realistic optimism is great, right? You don't have to be my supplement for memory is not working.
You remember to take it?
Good one. Very good one. Pollyanna. I don't need to be Pollyanna who is,
Always see the bright side.
yes, but not realistic. Because some people are false optimists. It's always the bright side, but it's not something realistic. But being realistically optimist does us good. It's good for us. Talking about good things. Our words generate energy, and we all know that. We all know that experiment of the Japanese scientist who said bad words and froze the water, and good words and froze the water, and how the ice crystals form is It's undeniable. Undeniable. Our words have energy. They emanate an energy. So emanating positive energy is going to come back to us as positive energy. Emanating negative energy, surprise. Meditation. So meditation helps us detect the things we need to change in ourselves. So when we are honest with ourselves, when we look at ourselves like without our masks, meditation will help us pinpoint or detect what we feel needs to be changed. Healthy leisure. So healthy leisure will help us rest, as opposed to the kind of leisure that disrupts the spirit. So again, everything we do has an energy involved. So, I don't know, having a day at the swimming pool with your family, or a picnic with friends, or even having pizza with friends and talking about positive things is a completely different energy than sitting down by yourself with a very violent video game, for example. Or making your leisure to have like lengthy sessions of gossiping. Right? So healthy leisure will help us rest instead of making our spirit even more disturbed. And work. Fraternal or social help related to existential values. Sometimes getting in touch with the pain of others help us first feel grateful for everything we have, and also help us empathize and get rid of our biases, our prejudices, and eventually will help us be better people, will help us with that self-transformation. Does anybody have anything to add? Do you have any other tools that you use that you think we all could benefit from?
I think one of the things I can think of right now is like when you said about work, and there's there's some moments where gossip starts or complaining starts. I started to just do not engage. I don't even read anymore, especially on the internet, and I'm working from home right now, so I can simply I have the option to not, enter that energy. So I'm like, I'm not gonna read that, let me come back to work. And I see myself, and this was an entire process of self-knowledge and be alert when this type of energy is happening. And then when you don't engage anymore, you can see how much better you feel, because you can keep yourself in that positive and healthy.
Yeah. You need to exercise. It's a lot of work. Like you tell me, I sit at reception. I'm the hub of complaints, and I'm the hub of gossip. Everybody comes to me to tell me what someone else did or didn't do, who quit, all of that. And they come to me to complain about the size of the hole in the salt shaker and the pepper shaker. You wouldn't believe the kind of things that I get. And there's this person who every day comes to my desk at least 3 or 4 times a day. I'm having a bad day. My day is not good. I'm tired. And I'm like, no, you aren't. You're fine. Go. But yeah, it's not the choice of not engaging. It's hard at first because you don't want to be rude or anything like that, but it's a hard option, it's a hard choice to make, but it helps so much with your inner peace, with not letting that energy affect you.
Yeah, and I guess even if you don't have a way to, if it's in person, then you can have a way to just not let that energy goes into you. You're like, you just create like
Shoot
a barrier.
yourself,
And this goes back, and I've been reflecting on this a lot in my own life, this idea of edifying conversations that you brought up. Because I feel like, well, I definitely had it in my case, the way that we kind of organize knowledge learning here in North America, especially, but many parts of the world now, it's almost like you're trained to like expect some information to be received that you then digest and then you go and apply it. And it's always like I receive information in a vacuum and then I apply it. But I was thinking about that in so many contexts. I mean, for thousands of years, but even today, there's hundreds of millions of people that cannot read or write. Yet somehow, God still intends to have them progress and teach them. So how is He going to do it? Through engagement, through interaction. And so these underscores and even these lessons, and Alice was referencing it the other week, or a few weeks ago, I think, about how sometimes the messages that we receive from God and from spirituality or just lessons are so subtle, but they come everywhere if we are open to them. And so it could be about, you know, how are you reflecting on somebody telling you about how big or small the holes in the salt shaker are, or it could be anything. But you really realize if you want a lesson, it is there. It is not there soon. It is there right now at this very second and moment, and the only block, to your point, is whether or not you're going to open yourself up to the most virtuous lesson, or you're going to open yourself up to the murmuring, the gossip, and all the things that are going to draw you away from it. And so there's this sublimeness that I just appreciated from that recognition.
Yeah, and like we were saying before, Buddha never wrote a word down. Jesus never wrote a word down. How did it, you know, how did it spread? Through conversations, through disciples visiting place to place and bringing the word, right? So speaking our words are extremely powerful.
Absolutely. And even to just to add a little bit to that is that oftentimes, you know, you think that maybe the most important part of the conversation is what is said, but increasingly I've come to wonder if it's really not what is heard. And because at the end of the day, you can have the most eloquent speech that you want, but if it falls on deaf ears, it was as if it was never had even been said. Yes. And so how often do we in our own lives?
Or if the contents are empty, because the words could be beautiful,
yes,
but the contents could be empty.
True enough, absolutely. And so how much in our own
AI
lives?
teaches you that.
Fair enough.
Perfect. Does anybody else want to say anything before we finish?
I just have one more comment here in regards to what you're saying, like about the cure of cancer, for example. So sometimes you do have this in your program, right? Oh, you're gonna have very, you know, high standards in terms of curating cancer and blah blah blah. You're gonna be a very knowledgeable doctor, but I guess this always will come with virtues you also have to exercise. So it doesn't mean that if you're a doctor, you're not like you're not supposed to cure cancer because you have to work on yourself. It doesn't mean that, right?
Exactly.
But it means you still have another part of that. You can do both.
Yeah, your program is gonna guide you to that end.
Yeah, because if you cured cancer but you didn't progress yourself in a moral way, that reincarnation probably didn't go exactly how it was planned.
Yes, it wasn't used, was for sure, because it's going to benefit billions of people. However, for you yourself, it's the story. We pass this on. It's the story of the book Voltei, or I went back. It's not come back, because in English there's go back and come back. So it's went back. He went back to the spiritual world, and it's the story about the owner of Odeon, right? It was Odeon?
He wasn't from the account. He wasn't.
No.
No, he was the guy from accounting from FAB. Wasn't it? He was working on FAB?
No, he was the president of FAB for many years, but he was a multi-millionaire because he was the owner of the first records company in Brazil.
Oh, yeah.
But he was the president of the Brazilian Spiritist Federation for many years. And he donated most of the money he made in his personal business to what we call in Portuguese assistencialism, to donate food to the poor and all of that. So he improved technology at the Brazilian Spiritist Federation. He did so much. When he died, Bezerra de Menezes came to help with disconnecting his body and his soul. That's how important a person he was But then they were putting a group together so that they could travel together of other spirits who had died. And he looked at the side, and there was this grade school teacher, very simple, from the countryside, who emanated a whole more light than he did. He looked at her, and he looked at him, and he was opaque, and she was shining. And he just could not understand. How can she be so much more illuminated than him? There was the, like a businessman who donated so much, who did so much for FEB and everything, until he realized, and he's a case that he got depressed in his spiritual world. Because he finally realized that all the stuff he did, it was extremely important. Bezerra came to welcome him, so of course it was important. However, he did it for the outside, but not for him. So the doctor we're talking about, so it is going to be extremely important for humanity. But if he doesn't do it for himself, then he will have wasted his personal time on himself, right? Okay, all right, so everybody stay for our party. So let's do our final prayer and the passes. Dear Jesus, dear Father of infinite love and mercy, thank you so much for this edifying conversation we had, for the edifying reading of the texts we went through. We thank the spiritual mentors of FSS for helping us accomplish the management, the opening, and subsequently the management of FSS. I want to thank some friends who are not here today. I would like to thank Eric Menegini, Gustavo Brandão, Anderson Garcia, Andresa Marcília, and Natália Branco, as well as Cynthia Alves, who got together to make FSS become reality, to make all of our dreams and inspirations come true. With this loving place that welcomes everybody. And I want to thank our mentors one more time for being with us from the beginning, from the preparation in the spiritual world, from putting all of us together so that today we could be where we are with all these incredible people that are here right now, today. We thank our mentors for helping push us ahead. We thank them for helping all who volunteer to work, all who come looking for a little more knowledge, looking for comfort. May we continue to be a little dot of light that is always open and welcoming to all and every soul that would like to come and join us with this energy of love, with this energy of friendship and fraternity. So be it.